watu wengine kuongea. Okay, back to you, Dako.
All right, thank you very much, Pepita, for clarifying that.
Na kisonono ama ugongwe na lori.
0 seconds. Right. Asante sana Farah. Let's have I Bay. Go ahead. I.
Esther, let someone else speak first. There's something I'm doing.
Are you present? All right. The iron might not be present. Tribeless, go ahead.
Thank you so much, KOT, Cash, Esther, the very, very normal faces we normally, I know we normally meet in X-Space and we agitate for change in my country. So today I will be very brief. I just don't want, I think we have lamented enough. We've vented our frustrations. We've spoken. We need to put our words into actions. We need to actualize the plans that we are putting in place. And why do I say this? Today I just saw the US Secretary of State, Mr. Anthony Blinken, through his spokesperson, Mr. Miller. They had a conversation with the Sugoi man, Baba Shalin, overnight, and he wants Baba Shalin to ensure that the rule of law is upheld, to ensure that Kenya is governed by the constitutions, to ensure that the security apparatus do not circumvent the rule of law, and to ensure that the killings, the abductions, the forced disappearances, and mayhem is not perpetuated by the police and the military. And that's a plus for us. That's a plus for us. And I also know that today there's another virtual online, United Nations Assembly that's going to happen today night. And I have seen the spokesperson of the SG of the UN, that's Mr. Antonio Gutierrez, has outlined the agenda. And part of it I've seen, not necessarily just Kenya, but I've seen part of the agenda is mayhem and war. And that's good because I hope the State House apparatus will be obviously attending that meeting virtually and they will pick something from that. But this is what I want to say, that you people, let us keep this fire burning. We have vented enough. Let us now come and say, this is what we want to do. 8th August is fast approaching. How are we approaching it? Are we going to let us notify the police? Let us notify Mr. Bungei. Let us notify the Nairobi County RC that we're going to have a convention at Uhuru Park. And let them try and deny us permission. Because the Constitution does not. We are not seeking for permission. We only need to notify our business. This is the rule of law. So what do we need to do. Let us go there. Let us so how we handle it going forward is going to be a key determinant. Let us make him not have peace the way he made Uhuru Kenyatta not to have peace. Let us be organizing right. Being invited to contribute.
0 seconds.
Let us come together. Let us go to Uhuru Park. Let us have this person held to account on 8th of August. Let us push this hashtag. Come out in large numbers to put
Two days after that, I was a young woman, so don't ask what I was doing in these establishments. I was in another establishment, and a man who would be associated with a militia group that I will not name was busy making phone calls, and he was mobilizing the militia that would kill a lot of innocent people in the Rift Valley. And from that moment, I knew damage during elections. And so they use, on these occasions, they turn man on that you will save them when you become the MP. One of the things, one day we will change the constitution and we will ban clapping for politicians. We will ban calling them Mheshimiwa. And the other thing we'll ban is them coming to say, we are going to give you this and that. I don't know if anybody noticed that the president has released money to pay police. It is their right to be paid, but the timing is interesting. 2 days ago, he was in Mombasa and he promised them money that is rightfully theirs. So I'll tell you, I'll finish the story of the 2008, and then I'll give the hosts a moment with another story of the impact of turning people on each other. The young people who are radicalized to believe that they are fighting for their own resources. And I'm not talking about this particular revolution. I'm talking about the conflicts. I was in Village Market and I was using the old traditional taxis. And a young man who looked zombified was walking around. And the taximan volunteered the information and said, these are the young men who are used in the tribal clashes. And all of them ended up like this. And he said, we believe it's a curse. There will be many names for it. In science, it will be called something else. post-stress disorder or something else. The African will say they were cast for shedding innocent blood. But that tells you those lives were destroyed. The language we use to justify killing innocent people, I said we use the word they died. We don't like to use the word they were killed. Today, the LSK was having a function and a citizens' assembly in a live one at the Catholic University. And the only interesting story, there were many interesting stories, but the captivating story was the mother of Rex. And when we give these stories about the victims, we want to bring them there and become the face and the poster of that particular brutality that we face. In my life, I'm not a young person, but in my life, I do not remember 2013. Maybe something was going on in my life, but I remember 207 and I remember 2017. 2017 is where my awakening for the unfairness of politicians was when children were killed. And I found it also unfair when we focus on the children and we forget the young people. And that was a turning point for me. And I decided I was going to follow one family and see the impact of post-election police brutality. It is very intentionally brutality. And oftentimes we talk about the ones that died. We rarely document the ones who are brutalized in other ways that is life-changing. I know a woman, it has been documented in a documentary by African Uncensored, a woman who was sexually assaulted twice in the elections of 2013 and in the elections of 2017. She was a volunteer in the Red Cross, thinking she was helping her fellow Kenyans, and she ended up being brutalized by a police officer. It has happened in this particular revolt, and again, it may never be documented. Those victims live forever with that trauma. So I think I learned it there not to leave you on a downer, because the next part I wanted us to look at the methods in the mess. What tools do they use? And like I've said, the most important one is the language you use to report. Journalists and media houses have kept calling them anti-government protests, and that automatically puts the protester at risk. When we say protesters were killed, we are removing the humanity from them. We don't say a young man, we say a protester, or they were killed in the protest, as if to insulate the inhumanity of the act of what politicians do to safeguard their power. The people around politicians I call in Kiswahili ni makunguru. They are they are hawks waiting to pick up the pieces, and they lie to themselves that they are protecting their country, but they are protecting their interests. So I want us in the next segment to think of how, at a very personal level, we can stop blaming victims by how we talk about this. People have said, use the words, and I say, I want you to note the key words. During Corona, COVID-19, we used to have keywords like lockdown. There were specific words that were used to normalize even the brutality that Kenyans were meted with. And for this particular time, the key word is goons, and the other one is anarchists. And that word has been used to blame the victims. I will, in the words of a lawyer, young lawyer, Article 37 should not be a cause of death. So I want us to have a sober conversation moving forward, because I want to share with you the hierarchy of goons, so that you don't think the goon is that uneducated fella who just needs 500 and a stick, because we saw these sticks during COVID. We've seen these sticks in groups, the militia groups, the militarization of young men against each other. So as a nation, what we have lost and what we need to gain back is our conscience in the way we tell this story. And we have to be careful with this generation to warn them that when I asked a young person who participated in the demos, in the protests, and what was her experience, and she said she did not expect anyone to die. And so what has happened after that? They're angry, and the president is angry. I'm in power. I'm going to protect the presidency. And the worst thing out of all the incidences I've seen, because I live to see all the presidents of Kenya, even when I was a child, is if the president speaks and it's just him who speaks, the impact is not as bad as when he unleashes his people. Even women have come up and said, a policeman, I have been told, I have been accused of defending the victims and not the police. And I'll say this might sound in unkind, or might sound like I have no compassion. But when you join some careers we choose, if you're a doctor, you know the occupational hazards of that career. If you become a soldier, you even wear a dog tag because you could be killed in an explosion and they need to recognize you. No young man lives and wakes up in the morning knowing that just being a young person could be a cause of death. Yes, I have compassion for police and they have suffered, but I think we need to focus because the police has medical cover. Sometimes we know they are not well taken care of, but the dynamics are very different and the hierarchy is very different from a citizen of that woman. And the last story before I close, I have documented the story of Stephanie Mora for over 4 years. A story that has never been told is this. The day Mokaya went out to vote, he noticed that the police trucks had been smeared with mud on the number plates. He noticed. He had no idea that his life was going to change that afternoon, but he did notice that number plate. And the other untold story about this killing of this 8-year-old while she was playing in a balcony and the parents thought their child was safe. The other untold story was when the OCS of Bodaiga was told to go and check the incidents of a child has been shot. As soon as he arrived, word had gone around the whole of Madare area that police had shot a child. And a mob in their thousands showed up in Madare area B, and they were baying for the blood of that officer. And what did this father do as his child lay there? 8-year-old girl had been shot through the chest with an AK-47. You know the size of that bullet. What did that father do in that moment? When the policeman, people wanted to revenge, he hid him. They closed the plot and the people kept banging on the door and they put barricades to make sure that the crowd would not come and hurt that policeman. But when it was the turn of the policeman to return the favor and the case began, an inquiry was formed. He still insisted he did not know which officer was involved or who had been sent to that area. That shows you the love-hate relationship because between the citizens and the police is only in these instances where they are protecting. They've been sent by their boss to go out there. And my last submission before I close, I'm just about to close, was I don't know if anybody noticed the relationship between the military and the citizens when they came out. They were received like heroes. They looked up to them. Maybe it's time we swap these two groups. Take the police and take them to the barracks and bring these ones who don't look at the citizens as the enemy. We are going to have to change how we do things from now on. I cannot stand to see another family bury their child and the ruling class pretend it did not happen. I have said without shame that anybody who got appointed because of this conflict is an opportunist. And that appointment letter has blood. That's me. And Eli, you knew that this was going to be an emotional submission. And yes, I am ready for the reactions from the people because people don't like the reality of the impact of the things we do to the human spirit. We can talk all we want about classifying them as Gen Z. Those are Kenyan young people. So let's keep talking. Let's hear your reactions to what I've just submitted. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Redemptor. What sticks out for me is the fact that people were killed. They didn't die. They were killed. They are protesters. They are not protesters. If you look the wording, it's to demonstrate. And demonstrations, according to our Katiba, implies you're doing it peacefully. So for it to be called protests, it's a political connotation that ensures that when the police react, they don't respond. When they react, there's justification to that. And the other part, they are not just numbers. They are people who were killed. They didn't die. Makia, any quick remarks before I can allow people to just contribute to what is happening and the conversation we're having before we look at the hierarchy of goons? If you find this conversation interesting, it would be unfair for you not to share this and invite 2 or 3 people so that we have a very serious conversation around brutalized Kenyans. Many more coming up in a few. Richard.
I think, like, for me, it's the lie that we are a republic that, cares about democracy. And to put even spit to the faces, we have one of the most engaging UN institutions in Kenya. We actually have UN officers in Kenya. Kenya has actually been a signatory to charters, of human rights and all these other organizations. I remember when Barack Obama came, his focus was more on, the civil society and what those kind of organizations get to do. So again, we are a country that has signed ourselves off to organizations worldwide, received funding to be progressive in these areas. But in reality, the sort of detest we have for life in these countries is actually on a different level. When I hear somebody quote how many businesses have been lost, how many livelihoods have been lost, but does not speak about how many people, have lost their lives and would never live to see another day. I mean, it's quite mind-boggling and shocking. So again, I've actually had these conversations with Mizani before. I've actually had people who are in the army, and you actually speak to them. Their training specifically is geared towards the external enemy, and that is why they would never view the common citizen as the enemy. That's why they're actually restrained, because from their training, how they're, psychologically, how their tune is, they always look for external forces. The reason why the police sort of force, because we call it a service, but it's still a force, is actually a bit more different, is also because of their training. Because they're trained to look at dealing with the Raya and not, its citizens. They're looking as, at people who walk in the streets, their so-called relatives, could be anything, an enemy of the state at any time. So if you actually check out police training, and it's actually so sad how we find ourselves here, because these are people who live amongst us. They have families, they have mothers, they have brothers. I hope you guys remember when people were going to parliament and one police officer realized, he lost a family member, and how traumatic and psychologically disturbing that was. The other one who lost his arms, and would he think that he went to the streets and it was worth the cause for what he was actually getting to fight for? So I think, for me, even if we did a swap and brought the military to the streets, the question still is, what is the psychology that goes into training people of uniformed forces? Because, as Redempt has actually rightfully put it, these guys are like sort of trained to protect the one thing, and that is the state. Who's these police that we keep complaining about year in, year out? When Uhuru was there, the police were the problem. When Moi was there, the police were the problem. When Kenyatta was there, the police were even a bigger problem. Ruto the other time was saying police msifanya 1, 2, 3, but when he's office, the police is actually still the problem. So I'd agree with what Redemptor is actually saying, that the institution is what is the problem. Eli, I see your hand up. I don't know if my time is up. All right, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And again, I know there's so much to be discussed. However, we have a really interesting conversation tonight, and Redemptor has quite a lot of issues she has to offload, and we have to engage with her. And therefore, all our speakers, kindly limit yourself to 4 minutes as we go back to Redemptor in a few, to look at the hierarchy of goons and how it impacts this issue on brutalized Kenyans. historical injustices, and much more to be covered as we continue with the conversation. Salah, I've been trying to get you on the mic. Kindly proceed. You have 4 minutes. Anything in relationship to what Redemptor just presented, the mic is yours.
And thank you for the host. And good evening, all. And actually, I'm not a Gen Z. I'm probably one or two levels beyond them or above them. And but I feel what they are doing is a good job. The Gen Zs have been doing good work with their revolutions. Today, we don't have parliament. The judiciary is partially, captured or almost not there. We don't
Pardon
have
me,
the police.
Salah. Today we are not
Yeah, I was.
complaining about
Yeah,
judiciary. I want us
I was
to look at
coming.
the brutalized Kenyans. It's very important we
I was
maintain that.
coming. I was coming to that.
Kindly go
Sorry, I
to
was
that,
coming.
please, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Kindly.
I was saying this because the police service are not doing their job as required by the police service. And why is it so? Is it so? It's so because of the presidency or the office of the president or the system of governance which is there. These police people, they are very good people. They know the law, but there are some crooks who have been placed there and given specific orders to do that job, to brutalize the Kenyans, to shoot at them, to tear gas them for expressing their constitutional right of picketing. At the helm, it's with the government is deliberately putting people, specific people, who they want to implement their issue with, who has got no rule who has got no respect for the rule of law. And this is the reasons why this agitation is becoming even more important and to participate in it. Because if we don't do this, then we don't have a Kenya. We will continue losing life. We will continue losing life. We will continue, the corruption is going to continue. The cost of living is going to go up. This country will be in turmoil. The anarchy that people are talking about is not because of this movement or the demonstrations. The anarchy of this country is brought about by the government in place and those people who are running this government. And when we talk about here, and probably some of them are listening here, what we want the government to respect the rule of law. We want the government to do its work of governance. We want the government to do accountability and transparency. We want the government to be answerable to the people. The reason even there is this issue of people saying, okay, taking orders from Europe and those kind of things. Personally, what I see is that and this Europe and the West, and the person at the helm, they have got something. They have an interest, and he has an interest. What is his interest? He wants to remain.
Salah, I'm sorry, but you are completely off topic. I'm sorry, you
Okay.
have to learn at that. We will look at the other compilation of why this is happening and how Europe or the others are engaged. But for tonight, we're looking at the historical injustices. Let us not veer off from that. And this has to be our main focus. Partner, I'll give you 3 minutes. That is Victor Wesonga. You have 3 minutes. And then at exactly 7:40, that is 8:40 p.m., we go back to Redemptor. Spartan, please. Spartan.
Thank you, Ellie. I was following a presentation by Redemptor, and I must say she captured everything that has been happening for the last 6 years or so. The police brutality is something that I feel like it's a responsibility that solely lies with the parliament if they're willing to change those rules and anchor whatever the police needs to do in the constitution. We had a case way back in the United States where we had an issue with the George Floyd issue. It took Congress to come up with laws that compelled police officers that you have to turn your cameras on at any point you're handling a citizen. So I feel like these policemen are used as political, tools to settle scores. And I feel like this time is overboard, and it's a discussion that no one wants to face heads on. It's a discussion that you find when Ruto himself is being tackled by the police in a way that he doesn't feel like corresponds with whatever is needed according to the law. He comes out and shouts to the top of his voice, like, you know what, the police shouldn't handle this. This is how the police should handle people. So that means he knows what the police needs to do. But because it favors him at this particular point, he chooses to use police as a political tool to settle scores, not even with the political class, but with the citizens themselves. So I feel like someone has to take responsibility going forward for all this that is happening in Kenya. And the only way that can happen, it can't happen even with this political class. Because if that happens today, tomorrow, let's say Raila gets in there, he will still use the police to do whatever he needs to do. They're always there to shoot anyone that scares the presidency. And it's all about the president. They don't even care about the citizens themselves. Now, we have these people taking political seats. We were demanding for justice, but no one wants to face the issue heads on. It's like, let's come together, united, to work for good governance in Kenya. But how about people that were killed during all this struggle? So I feel like this is something that even the opposition themselves have gotten used to it so much that they don't even care. Citizens dying. How many citizens have died in the hands of the police while fighting for the opposition? So I feel like this is something that needs to be handled, and is something that needs to be faced by each and every Kenyan, regardless whether you are a kid, regardless whether like, this thing can meet you anywhere. We can't be like, I'm a middle class, my kids live in those those posh areas, so you don't care about that person living in Madari. That can be your cousin, that can be your nephew, that can be anyone. So let us be honest with ourselves. Let's not be so selfish that we don't even care what happens to my neighbor, my friend. We just had an example of what happened at the parliament, where a police
Spartan,
person
take
was
another
running.
30 seconds. We need to move, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just finalizing. So this is something that political class won't take us. They won't help us out with this, because this is what they use year in, year out. So let us take this mantle. Let us come up as citizens and hold these policemen accountable through whichever means that is available in the law. I know they have a way around the law, but let us just, come up and do something. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spartan, and we do appreciate your contribution. The conversation continues, and we are looking at brutalized Kenyans. Do you at one point feel like, Mazei Kenya, there's somebody who said Kenya iuzwe kila mtu apewe share yake, we close it down. We are running an opinion poll, and among the issues we are asking on our opinion poll thread, which is on the Jumbotron, is, in the last month, have you or anyone you know encountered incidents of police-related brutality? It's a yes and no question. Kindly see if you can respond to it. And number two is, in the last month, have you, your child or elderly persons under your care experienced sleeping difficulties or nightmares given the ongoing Gen Z quote-unquote demos? And we also have the last one is, how do you feel when you encounter a police officer in your day-to-day activities? Kindly take a moment and look at that poll. Let us know what you think. We'll be looking at the results towards the end of the talk conversation. Redemptor, we want to come back to you. And as you come in your first presentation, you mentioned quite a number of issues, from the Archbishop Ndingimona Nzeki conversation. You looked at fast forward 2008, when you state you lost your innocence and trust in the politician, because whereas people were starting to kill each other in Naivasha, they were high-fiving celebrating their stealing of votes, or should I say the election. And you also mentioned the issue of Stephanie Mora, which you've covered extensively over the years, among others. But what I look at, and I find it's worth noting for all of us, is the fact that when a father whose child had been shot by a police officer in Mathare saw that the police officer that was going to check on the condition of the area or the incident was about to be lynched by the mob, he actually provided cover. But unfortunately, during the hearing, he could not in any way submit to agree that he knew the perpetrator of the incident. This conversation continues, and welcome Redemptor as we look at the hierarchy of goons. Redemptor.
Yes, there's an ecosystem of the reason why there's a lot of confusion in the level, the application of the brutality that is never documented is because of a class aspect. There's an ecosystem in the informal settlements where if you lose your phone in town today and you're tourists and the police decide they are going to find that phone, they will find the phone for you. But during election, something changes. It is not the usual police that patrols that neighborhood, that knows the gangs in that neighborhood. And I'm just telling you, if you ever ask, why don't you catch them? They coexist. There's all the changa brewers, all the people who are peddling drugs in the street. There's an ecosystem that just exists until the police are used as a weapon. When they send them to the streets, usually, let me tell you the scene that happens every election cycle. As soon as they announce the results, they know people in Madare and in Kibera are going to protest. And almost unconstitutionally, without ethics, without morals, they have this conversation in their head. A few will die, people will forget, tutachukua serikali. And that pattern has gone on in talking to families of victims. It is alleged, and I put in quotes, alleged that the people who were brutalized in Madara in 2017, they saw people in police uniform who had dreadlocks. And we know our police do not don dreads. So there's something that happens that is very different. That's why I call it the hierarchy of goons. We also a Range Rover in town. We saw for the first time the OCPD that people talk about all the time, walk in the streets and talk to protesters. Now, when we talk of goons, we think of those borders that were allegedly from Kangemi. And for me, I say the hierarchy of need, because a goon is someone who uses threats. And when you see a governor say, do not come to my county and say the president must go, that is a goon. And that's why I say the hierarchy of goons, who is in whatever they do, is not limited to an age group. It is someone who is so determined to protect their interests. It's not about your country. It's not about good governance. It is protecting interests. Sadly, I feel for the first time, young people died because of the egos of our leaders. They embarrassed them. The day 3 young people went to a TV station and spoke truth to power, the people of my generation were very offended. In fact, they called it immorality. They said it's immoral. We need to teach our young people morality. You cannot talk to the president like that. And so I sat down with someone and I said, I want you to tell me how we talk to each other, peer to peer, the politicians. Wale watu tutawaonyesha, tutawakanyanga, hatutafanya hivi, hatutawapatia nusu mkate. The young people have been watching how we talk to each other. We have no respect for each other. And so they have lost respect for us. So I feel like in this particular incidents, everything was televised. The young people promised us the revolution would be televised. And we have a nation that is traumatized. Let no one lie to you that when you see people in Kilifi and you say they are celebrating confusion. I have never in my life, even covering post-election police brutality for all those years, I have never seen somebody shot on camera. And I would understand why they are being told not to show those images. But unfortunately, the images are out there.
But I don't think that we had a clarity of mind of how people can exercise power collectively under Article 1. This year we have experienced and seen people, especially the youthful GenZs and their millennial brothers and sisters, exercising their sovereignty. They didn't need to have a formal way of communicating, but through social media, they were able to push and to make a chest-thumping president recall the finance bill before he could sign it to be an act of parliament, to become law. It was already an act of parliament, but it had not become law because he had not appended his signature. We have seen him dissolve cabinet. Unfortunately, we have seen him now go back to his comfort zone before adhering to all the other demands. In conclusion, therefore, changing the status quo means that each one of us individually and all of us collectively hold hands and do what is needed to be done. What you are required to do individually, you do it in accordance with the Constitution and our law. What we need to do collectively, we stand collectively. And I feel we still have a job to do. We can't let this moment go. This is a moment to go back to the reset button and to help our country. I think that's all I would like to say for now. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. And you highlighted correctly the importance of adhering to the Constitution, as we've seen it being really violated so many times. And talking about Article 1 of the Constitution, there was some discussion that it could be that the Constitution is vague about how then people would implement that if they really want to take back the mandate that they gave. Are you able to chime in on that? Because as so far I know, there's a petition in court at the moment. Just a few words, and then I will open the session to everyone to ask questions. So 2 minutes each. Back to you.
It is true that the Constitution does not expressly tell you what to do. And I do not think there is any law that can provide for everything. And like I've said before, I do not know of any other constitution in the world except the Kenyan Constitution that envisages a revolution by the people using their collective power. And we almost saw it. And I keep on wondering, on the 25th, when there was killing, needless killing of the peaceful protesters, what if the next day, all of us now, not just the GenZs, their mothers, their sisters, everybody had come out? Wouldn't we have achieved a change of government? And then what happens? Because you have to look at it and see what happens, because you do not want a situation that would go out of hand and then work against the change that people are looking for. There are many ways. It's not written in the Constitution, but it is possible, I think, of people to recall institutions. And I believe that the numbers that came out at the peak of those demonstrations, I actually believe the executive and parliament stand recalled. And in governments in the West, when there is expression of public displeasure that is so strong as it was in this country, actually the government on its own volition would have resigned to pave way for the elections. And if that had happened, then the law says it is the speaker who would be in charge during that period. But it is still possible for people using their collective voice to give the minimum conditions for such an election. Yes, there is no IBC at the moment, not properly constituted, but it is possible for Kenyans to constitute one, and it can be through formal or informal channels. I have seen the GenZ vetting, those whose name have been put out as cabinet secretaries. And they are doing it very well, better than actually Parliament, the institution that has let Kenyans down repeatedly in vetting. So I would like to hear other thoughts, but there are many ways and tested ways. Just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't be done. I bet last year, if we had said people could exercise their power, or when we were saying it in our meetings, not everybody believed what we were saying. But now we know it's possible. And I know there is a lot of thought going on in different circles on how people can achieve the ultimate. And it includes those who have gone to court to ask for a referendum. But personally, I believe when people are exercising their sovereignty directly, they do not necessarily have to go to a delegated institution. And all the arms of government are delegated institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One last question before I open the floor to everyone. I am of the opinion that the winner takes it all option does not work very well in many African countries. So my opinion is that if we could have a parliamentary type of government, then that would really work more. What is your opinion on that? Can you, sorry, could you kindly unmute? Yeah.
Sorry, I had still muted.
Yeah.
My opinion on that is that if we go back to Article 81 of the Constitution, which talks of us ensuring that the electoral system shall comply with the following principles, where it talks of us having a system that enables several things: representation, gender representation, representation of people with disabilities, universal suffrage, equality of the vote, free and fair elections, and all those other things. I believe that it's not so much about winner takes it all. It's about reviewing our electoral system so that we can be able to if you then make every fourth, fifth, or 10th a person with disabilities or a minority, It is a system that would help us to get less people into parliament and representative. And the fact that people would not have to campaign, I would not have to campaign to be elected. I'll campaign for my party. It would go a long way in helping us shed off personal competition where corruption comes in, where a candidate has to bribe the voters. If it is my party getting elected, I have no pressure as a person to dish out money. So I would think myself that it's the PR system is accommodative and it's not the winner takes it all because you are going to share the seats. You may not share government, but you will share the seats in proportion to the votes each party got. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that is also what I was referring to. And just to give an example, like in Kenya, we've had 2 leaders from Germany visit. Scholz, the chancellor, is from the Reds. And the other lady came, Annalena Baerbock, is from the Greens. So that is actually different parties, same country, but sharing the same interest of the people. Okay, so thanks for that. Hillary, kindly say a few words before we now proceed to Fabish, Baba Amandla, Liberali, and Duncan in that order. I'll be picking 4 speakers, 2 minutes each. Pose your questions, and then we give Mama the time to respond. Hillary.
Yes, much. Before they come in, good evening, good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mamata, for coming and conversing with us today. We're really happy to have you today and share the wisdom. And I think, Maj, you gave the direction how we're going to do it today. And also, remember to follow each other, guys. Remember to connect so that we can connect when we have all these spaces. It is important to get at that point. Otherwise, back to the list.
Thanks.
You can go on.
Fabish, go, then Baba Amandla, then Liberal, then Duncan, 2 minutes each.
Thank you so much, Maj, Hilary, and Mama Martha. Thank you so much for attending.
Fabish, are you here?
Yes, I can hear
Can
him.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear him. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mama Martha, for coming to this session, at least to enlighten us. You are one of our leaders that we respect so much. You have struggled for this country, and your struggle will not go in vain. We are still here also trying to back up and make our country better. I have a few questions that I'd like to ask. One is about parliament, because we see parliament being an extension of executive. Always since we enacted even this new constitution and even with the older one. How are we going to solve this issue of parliament being an extension of executive? Is it possible that maybe we can make a parliament to be neutral, that when the members of parliament are elected, then when they are sworn in as members of parliament, they denounce their parties and they remain neutral so that they will not be used as extension of executive? Then number 2 is about in this new constitution, we knew that the CS, the ministers, are not supposed to be politicians. But it is difficult because when the person is elected, he has denounced his political party. But was it there a timeline that maybe you are not supposed to belong to any political party for maybe 6 months or 1 year, so that before you are nominated in that position? Question number 3 is about resolving of election disputes, because we see this is a thorn issue in our country since 2007, where it was bloody, and that issue has never been resolved. And to add also that one, so that Mama Martha, you can at least even clear yourself, because many people have been laying accusation on you that you are the one that helped Kibaki to rig the election of 2007. Maybe you can just come out and clear on that one. Then another one is about this Article 1. How do we exercise Article 1
without being looked as anarchy. Because when people exercise it collectively, then we see the regime of the day will say that this is anarchy. They want to disturb the law and order. So I don't know how people suppose area. You want to present petition to State House, you are told that is a protected area. So how are people supposed to exercise their Article 37 and present their petitions to these institutions? And the last one is about over-representation that we see. Why do we have too much representation? Is it lack of values and trust? Because why would we elect a member of parliament that is supposed to represent everyone in society? Then again, you are told that no, you need a woman representation. Decided to choose maybe women ministers. Is that gender parity going to be turned upside down? That now it has to be two-third gender rule on the upside down? Or, for example, a case of like Nakuru County, where all
Fabish,
leaders are women.
Fabish, please.
Ye-
2 minutes.
yes, this is the
You're
last
already
one.
in the 4th minute. Yeah, back to you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, the last one. So that is, I wanted to know about that one, whether is it lack of value and trust. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Mama Martha, is it fine for you if we take 4 speakers, then you note the questions and answer, or do you want to answer after every speaker?
Take maybe 4. I
Okay.
answer.
Okay. Let's go to Baba Amandla, please. 2 minutes each. Let me explain. After 1 minute, I'll carry my hand up. Look at my profile. When you see my hand up, you know you have 1 more minute to go. And really, we want to be strict because we still have more speakers on the line waiting. Baba Amandla, please. Baba Amandla, can you hear me? If not, let's go to Liberali. Yes, kindly proceed. Okay, I cannot hear Liberali. Can anyone hear Liberali? Okay, so
Hello.
yes, please proceed.
Thank you very much. In you to be able to steer us and advise this movement on the way forward and how to change the status quo. My name is Dr. Duncan Onyango. I teach at the Technical University of Kenya. And first now, how do we change the status quo? I strongly believe, Honorable Martha, that one of the ways is to ensure that 2027 and a crop, we bring in a significant number of fresh minds into that parliament. How do we get there? Can we sit here hoping that ODM and UDA and these existing old political systems will give fresh minds, people of integrity, chance to get into positions of leadership in 2027? Or what should we do? How do we organize ourselves? Number 2, I strongly believe that if we are
Duncan, you need to land.
Okay.
So guys,
Sorry?
you need to land. Let me please repeat myself. 2 minutes each. So if there's something already that has been spoken about, let's not repeat ourselves because then you're taking away your 2 minutes from yourself. Let's just go. If you have a statement to make, try to do it in 1 minute. Then the next minute you ask a question. So to the speakers who are coming next, please try to structure your speech so that it fits within 2 minutes. I know it's really very restricted, but we have to also consider those who are coming after. Duncan, 1 more minute and then you close. Back to you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry for that. Sorry for that. Number 2, I don't know what Martha would advise us. Now that ODM has sent its top leadership into government, and they're still claiming to be in opposition, what can be done legally to formally force them to go into government and give fresh room for a new opposition in parliament, so that we don't suffer the consequences of things that happened in times like during the handshake, when we had no serious opposition in parliament? Finally, how do we unify this movement to achieve all these things that we want to achieve? I'm sure even now there are so many spaces all talking about the same thing. And that division, I'm sure, has led us to where we are this far. If we are to continue and achieve meaningful change, how do we bring together all these minds or similar minds and ensure that we are unified, structured, and organized to bring meaningful change in this country? Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Let's go to Kimani and then Henry, and then Mama Martha is going to answer those first sets of questions. Kimani, 2 minutes each. Kimani cannot hear me. Kimani, can you hear me? Okay, let's go to Henry. Henry?
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mad, for the opportunity. I appreciate even seeing Martha and the other speakers and listeners. Mine, I'm actually the chairman for Water Bottlers Association of Kenya. I'm so passionate about water. And allow me to start with water. We've been pushing for removal of taxes on water. And we even gave solutions that taxation should be pushed to plastic. Because when you put excise duty, which is sin tax, on water, it's like an insult, and you're insulting Kenya because even actually water is protected under the rights, like Article 43(4)(3)(d). We have a right to access to clean and safe water. So we've been pushing that. We've been giving our suggestion as the public. And one area I thought we also need to strengthen is on the public participation, because the governments have taken this public participation as an academic act, that you just go give your opinion and then you go back and they do what they do. So on water, we were asking government, remove tax on water, because water is not a nice thing. Water is life, and put it on excess on plastic. The other thing on these spaces, we've had challenges on representation of SMEs, because the only thing that will remove the Gen Z from the streets or from the benches is we strengthen the SMEs. We give them incentives so that they can have something and watoke kwa streets. That is the only thing that will stop the maandamano, if I was asked. The last thing is, we've been looking at Kenya. The other people have 100 years plan for Kenya. The other continents, Europe, America, Asia, they have like 100 years plan for Africa. But Africans, we have zero plans for our life. So let's remember that we need to look at Africa in the future, because there is no way we are pushing our agendas to the other continents. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Let's keep on deliberating. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Henry. And while we are at it, let's, because the Q&A has started, let's also continue sharing the space. And for the next speakers, please, 2 minutes each, and let's stick to the topic, changing the status quo. And with that, I give back the mic to Mama Martha.
Thank you. I'll begin with Fabish. You made a statement which is fairly accurate, that Parliament has become an extension of the executive, and that has gone on for the last, is it 10 years? It's now going to the 13th year, where Parliament appears to have lost its autonomy. I may appear selfish If I say the last parliament was the 10th parliament, where we passed the 2010 constitution. Even though it was a grand coalition government, the backbench exerted itself in many occasions, and that's how we got that document. I do not think that it is by renouncing their parties that parliament will become assertive. It is by the public using their agency and also utilizing the constitution to recall their members. You saw when the GenZ came out, many members even beginning to apologize for voting in total disregard of the wishes of the people. The only thing is that we have to keep this vigilance on a daily basis because, like I said, everybody has gone back to their comfort zone from the executive to parliament. So we've got a job to do to make holding leaders accountable a daily thing. And that requires information because we say information is power. And that's how the Gen Z were able to do it because they have the necessary information. So, how do we get information to the people? That's something we must think about. About cabinet secretaries, there's no law that says they should not belong to political parties, but they should not be active politicians. They should not be officials of those parties. The presidential system we have adopted in the Constitution, we borrowed largely from the US. And it is not in that country, the people, they get as CSs, as technocrats. It doesn't mean they are not party members. It just means that they are not active in pursuit of political positions. So there's nothing wrong of, for a CS to belong to a political party silently, but to be a technocrat who is able to serve. In Kenya, we have manipulated that clause, and it started with the Jubilee government appointing politicians who had just missed elections being elected back as cabinet secretaries. I think those are the areas we must hold governments to account and say that we want CSs who are pure technocrats. If you get somebody who has who wishes to stand in the next elections or to vie for a seat, they'll be working with that in focus, not working for the nation. The other question was about electoral disputes. Electoral disputes can be minimized if we have an electoral commission that is above board. It is not by how many clauses in the constitution or the law we change, it's the caliber of people we elect, we appoint to those positions. And I've said, although the constitution provides for competitive process in appointing electoral commissioners and even the staff, we have manipulated this system time and again, and we end up with people who are not suitable. That is the problem we are having. It is possible, sorry, it is possible in my view to change this situation if we make everybody account that if you go wrong, you account as a person. An institution is manned by men and women. Let those people account. For instance, we were asking last year that the servers be opened. What we really meant is not just the servers. Let us go through the documents. It is possible to find out where there was wrongdoing by officials of the commission by having a public audit, which is provided for in the Constitution. And I believe if 2-3 officials were found guilty of manipulation would end. But now it's like a joke. We just talk of the commission, not the individuals who do the actual thing. Then there's the question about Kibaki. and 207. Anybody who is of age and was of age at that time would know that in a tallying center, you don't go with ballot boxes. As an agent, you just go with yourself. I was just as you see me in the mtandao, with my kofia, striped t-shirt, and a skirt. I was not carrying any bag having votes. And I was Kibaki's agent, just like Orengo and anybody else was Raila's agent. We were there to listen and question the IEBC, and eventually they announced the winner. Because even if I tell you, you may not believe it, Fabish, read the Kriegler report made by Judge Kriegler and his fellow commissioners when inquiring in what really went wrong. You will find that votes were exaggerated in the ODM strongholds and in some of the strongholds of PNU. When I say ODM strongholds, it means some of them. Like I can tell you for free that the votes for Chepalungu, then held by Isaac Ruto, were recorded as 337,000 votes for Raila. When I questioned it, because that was more than the population of Chepalungu, the IEBC brought another cheat saying that it was a typographical error and the actual vote was 37,000. It was also found out later that there were areas during the petitions, there were Kibaki areas where also exaggeration took place. How it is alleged that I helped Kibaki rig is still a mystery to me, and I would say it is my brothers who caused commission. And yes, we arranged for Kibaki to be sworn in because his term midnight 30th, there would have been no president. And that is not rigging. And anybody with doubts, read the Kriegler report. I would do the same if it were today. And I know which turned bloody and chaotic. But it was deliberate acts of the state, hiring goons